And welcome back. My next guest is Dale Robinson, Commandant of the Rockland County Marine Corps League, a Marine Corps veteran, and also an active volunteer with the American Legion and Habitat for Humanity. Welcome, Dale.
Good morning, George.
Thank you so very much for not only your service to our country, but also your service to our community with both the Marine Corps League, the American Legion, and of course with Habitat for Humanity. And we're going to talk about all of those things during this segment.
Okay, great.
So Dale, maybe for the benefit of our viewers, you could talk a little bit about your service in the Marine Corps.
Well, I joined and I went through boot camp in 1959. I went up to Cherry Point and worked with the search and rescue outfit up there for a couple of years and did a med cruise and back to Cherry Point again. So that was mainly my main base of operations. So, and got discharged in 1963. A couple of years in active reserve after that.
So you were actually in the service during the height of the Cold War.
Yes.
It must have been an interesting time. You were in during the Bay of Pigs and the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Big time. Yeah.
What are your recollections of that time?
Well, at that time I was serving with the search and rescue outfit and had the duty, and went to bed that night an empty airfield. Woke up the next morning to an airfield filled with the big Galaxy transports and troops coming up from all over the place. From mainly Camp Lejeune to head down to Guantanamo. So it was a busy day. Of course, no one knew what was going on. You know, had no idea what was happening, and you kind of pieced it together over the day to figure out what the Cuban crisis was on at that time.
Right.
So.
That was certainly a scary time. I was born a couple of years after that, born in 1965. But as an avid reader of history. Lover of history, and just reading some of the stories that, from folks that were involved in the decision making at the time, and really just the whole tenor and the climate. That was really a scary time.
Yes,
the end of the 50s into the 60s, with really the race to outer space, the race for missiles, and really the different countries that were falling under the communist influence. It really was a very, very scary time. And it's really, you kind of were sandwiched in between two wars, between Korea and Vietnam, but your service was no less harrowing or taxing than other times.
Right. We signed up, they sent us someplace, and we did what we had to do. So that was our days.
So tell me a little bit about the Marine Corps League. You're the Commandant. I know that I see you often at different events as part of an honor guard. I'll also see you at Eagle Scout ceremonies. So maybe you could talk a little bit for our viewers about the Marine Corps League and what it does. Yeah,
the Rockland County Marine Corps League is a group of mostly Marine veterans. Some of us are a little long in the tooth, but we're still very busy with carrying on the legacy of the Marine Corps. We won't look over our new troops that are coming in. We have a program of scholarships for the Rockland Community College troops through Jonathan Barnwell. We also work with the MAG 49 Marines. This Thanksgiving we're supplying 24 families up there with meals for them. We're busy with a MASH program in which we have medical equipment that's donated. We donate it back out to veterans' families free of charge. Wow. So, and then of course the color guard activities. We look after our men that have passed on and give them the proper salute, color guards to that. So, plus the parade. So it's a big based community project that we're after. So.
Right. Now you do so much with that. I know the Marine Corps League is and of course with the Eagle Scouts, it's great to have, we have young folks, and less than 1% of young men who go into scouting actually go all the way through and are able to do qualify to do an Eagle Scout project and end up doing their Eagle Scout project. And the Marine Corps League is typically there, and they present a commendation and award and their own medal to the Eagle Scouts to commemorate their projects in their service. And it's great to be able to see exactly what the Marine Corps League does, because it's so widespread. It's taking care of former Marines and making sure that folks that as they've passed away that there is proper honor guard or service. So it's really a great thing. I thank you for your service and for all that you do as the Commandant for the Marine Corps League.
Right. Got some great men underneath me, though, that
yeah.
work with us. So.
Oh, you really do, and it's. I always get I'm honored by the ability to be able to just thank you guys. Anybody that's put themselves in harm's way for others. I mean, they're not everybody's done it. In fact, fewer and fewer people are doing it throughout our country, and we should never forget that service. I mean, it's part of the reason why we started the Military Appreciation Banner Program here in Clarkstown, because I think it's important for us to make sure that we recognize our veterans and our active duty personnel, folks living and deceased, that their service is valuable and really that we need to honor it and continually honor it.
Yeah, well, one of the programs that we have that we're pretty active with is what we call a vet-to-vet program through the Dwyer organization. And this is covering the PTSD and veterans that are having a little bit of trouble getting back into society again. I mean, we're looking at 22 men, veterans per day in this country that are taking their own lives. So it's a serious issue, and we're glad that we're able to really put out the mentors that they do have that. So,
yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned that. I had the honor of serving for about 21 years in the not-for-profit world, and the last 5 years before I became supervisor was as the executive director of the Rockland Independent Living Center, which now is known as Bridges. And the Dwyer program is a program that we applied for and brought into Rockland County, from the county government. And so I'm well acquainted with the program. We've had a number of folks that are involved with the Dwyer program, which you're absolutely right. It's a tremendous program because for vets, very often they're not looking for anything. They're amongst the last people that will look for help because of their training and because of what they've experienced or gone through. And that's why very often they'll just bottle things up. And the service, things that they may have seen in service and combat can come eking out in different ways. And so what makes that Dwyer program so powerful is that it's a vet who understands what another vet has gone through. And it's the old saying, unless you've walked a mile in somebody else's shoes, you really don't understand what they've experienced. And to have veterans be willing to go through that training and then to volunteer to be that linkage and that reaching out person as a mentor to others is really a wonderful tribute.
the biggest problem we have is getting veterans that we can find, because the privacy issues, we cannot find out who's been released from service. And Jerry Donnellan, of course, is a big conduit for all of that with the job that he does. So everywhere we can talk about it, we try and get older veterans to bring in new fellows for us. So,
you know, one of the things that strikes me about that Dwyer program as well is that it says the older veterans, you know, a lot of times, you know, folks will think, well, PTSD, you know, that happens, you know, the guys come home and they don't get themselves readjusted for whatever reason, and then issues take place. There are vets, and there's been case studies on this, there are vets that will go through, they'll come home, they go on with their life, and then it's at the change of life moments many, many, many years later. You know, we have instances of Korean War vets that after the death of their spouse, or after they've retired, you know, many, many years later, where that's when issues start to arise, because for many years they may have just pushed them down and not talked about it or what have you. That's why that program is great, because it's not just the younger vets that can be facing some of these issues. It's the vets that have been in for, you know, out for a long period of time that can also experience those things. You know, Dale, we got a couple of minutes left. I'd like to kind of segue into your service as a volunteer with Habitat for Humanity. And as the supervisor of the town of Clarkstown, I'm very grateful for that service, because Habitat has been instrumental in doing some work over at the Traphagen and Vanderbilt Buckeye property that the town owns. And Habitat has been working for all of 2016 over at that property, and you've done some great work. So maybe you could talk a little bit about your service with Habitat for Humanity and how you got involved with that.
well, I got involved a couple of years ago when we were down at Camp Shanks. We redid a community center from an old cinder block building down there for the Homes for Heroes program, to give them a space where they could have their recreation. And it kind of expanded from there. We moved up to a new home we just finished up in Haverstraw, which is open to a family of certain means. And these are a bunch of guys that are everywhere from retired bankers, school teachers, principals. There's no end to the number of people that are there. Great guys. We get together on a Thursday morning, a Saturday morning, and we just want to do things. I mean, that's the point of getting in. I was a carpenter, builder, cabinet maker for some 50-odd years, so it's something I enjoy doing, and we meet a lot of other guys too that do it. So, yeah.
And what I could tell our viewers is the Trapphagen and Vanderbilt Bucky houses over on the property over in Jamons was acquired by the town of Clarkstown in 2010. And under the prior administration, they were actually planning on selling the two houses, which really would have been a travesty. Very many years ago, probably about 4 or 5 supervisors ago, the town negotiated the first option, right of first refusal, to acquire 9 acres of that property, which is sandwiched in between other town property in West Nyack, right next to the Jamons Pool Complex and the Little League fields, which the town owns. And it was just so important that the town acquired that property, but we really never had a vision for it. And it's something that I elevated as a priority in my administration. And Habitat has just been a tremendous assistance and help. And I'm grateful Senator Carlucci and Assemblyman Zabrowski have secured about $500,000 in funding to help us get the houses restored. But in a very practical sense, just for a few $1,000s in materials and a lot of free labor from yourself, Dale, and other folks through Habitat, we've been able to do an awful lot of work over at the Trapphagen house, which dates back to 1810, the original section of that house. And then we have the Vanderbilt Bucky house, which is dates back parts of it to 1730, and then it was expanded in 1790. It's one of the oldest houses in Rockland County. And if it wasn't for your work with Habitat, we wouldn't be as far along as we are, particularly with the Trapphagen home. It's a beautiful homestead. I know that we remodeled the kitchen. We've done some work with the bathrooms. We've got heat and climate control in there now, and you guys have been doing work with doors and windows and siding, and it's really gotten the house to where it's actually being able to be used. As this program airs, we're going to be having, around the time this program starts to air, just before Christmas, we're going to be having a Christmas festival over there, the Saturday before Christmas, and we're certainly continuing to use it, and it's a tribute and a testament to Habitat, because we wouldn't be able to be using that property the way we are without your help, so I'm grateful for that.
It's part of the Habitat community outreach portion of what they do, but it's also a great commercial for us to spread our word and get more members in, more people, more donations. So yes, it works both ways, and we're anxious to get into the old house, so we're ready.
And I'm anxious to get you in there. I'm anxious to get you in there. If folks are interested in getting in contact with you or learning more about Habitat or about the Marine Corps League, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, we have a website. It's the www. Rockland Marine Corps League. And then Habitat also has a website that they can get into, which gives all the information on the officers who's there.
Great.
So yeah, we're looking for a few good men and ladies too.
Great,
Right.
great. Well, Dale, I want to thank you for being such a wonderful guest, and I want to thank you for your service to our country and your continuing service to our community, both through the Marine Corps League, American Legion, which we didn't really touch on too much, but great veterans organization, as well as your service with Habitat for Humanity. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, George. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So stay tuned. Our next guest will be Rockland County Executive Ed Day.